Welcome to Easy Elimu Learning Simplified. My name is Eric. I'll be taking you through natural numbers within the subtopic operations and whole numbers. So within the framework of this discussion, we're going to look at operation, product, or multiplication. And then number two, we'll look at the operation division. And then we'll be able to give you some questions at the end of the discussion to help you with the practice, just to gauge your understanding of the discussion. So we have our first example here, where you're supposed to work out 469 multiplied by 63. So we want to see how you go about this. If you're given this, how do you manage? How do you do it? So ideally, we're supposed to arrange just like we did in addition of numbers. We're supposed to arrange them vertically, even if they're given horizontally, like in this case. So you start by arranging them vertically. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take this number here, you multiply by each of the digits down here, irrespective of how many there are. So like in this case, there are 2. We have 3, and then we have 2. So you are supposed to multiply the number up there by each of these digits. So you'll multiply the number by 3, and then you'll multiply the number by 20. So these 2 will not be just read as 2. We'll be using actually the total values. You multiply them by the total values. For example, this is 1's place value multiplied by 3, total value is 3. So you'll multiply this number up here by 3. Again, you'll multiply the number by 20. So you'll be multiplying the number by 20, and then you'll be adding the 2. So if you multiply the first number up here by 3, the answer is here. And then if you multiply the number up here by 20, the answer is here. So you are adding the 2 to give you the result, the result of the product or the multiplication here. So result is here. So first of all, you multiplied by 3, the number up there, we got this. Then we multiplied it by 20. Remember, we multiply by the total values. You multiply by the total values, and then you add the 2. That will depend on how many digits we have. For example, if you had more digits here, you will keep on with the multiplication, and then you add the results depending on how many digits you'll be having down here. So you want to see how that is done. So if you multiply, so as you do the multiplication, you multiply digit by digit. For example, multiplying 8 by 3 gives us 24. So we write 4 here, and then 2, we carry it over to the next one. So here you'll not do the addition first. So you will multiply first, then you add. So you multiply 6 by 3 to give us 18. And remember, we have carried over 2. So 18 plus that 2 is 20. So 0, carry 2 again. So that's 2. You'll not add it like initially we did. You multiply first. So we have this 5 multiplied by 3 is 15. And then that 15 we are adding 2 to give us 17. So you'll write 7, you carry 1. The reason for writing is just that I don't forget. So we have 4 multiplied, this 4 here multiplied by 3 will give me 12, plus the 1 that you had carried, that will give us 13. So 13, we write 3 below that digit. So we write it just below here. So 3 carry 1 again. So 1 is here. So we have 3 by 3 is 9, plus the 1 that we carried, it becomes 10. So you can see the difference, how we do it differently from how we are doing it with addition. This is slightly different. So once you have the last digit multiplied, then now you write the whole number obtained, which is 10. And of course, the multiplication of 34,568 by 3 is giving us 103,704. Then now we are supposed to multiply by 20. So we will just multiply by 2, and then we add the 0. Remember, if you are multiplying a number by, let's say 20, maybe 3 by 20, like this one here, you'll just multiply 3 by 2, you get 6, and then you just add the 0. Or maybe 3 by 40, for example, you'll just multiply these two, gives you 12, and then you add 0, it becomes 20. So that's what we're doing. So you're just going to multiply by 2. Ideally, you're supposed to multiply by 20. So you just multiply by 2, and then you add the 0. So what we do, because that 0 is going to be added at the end, we start with it. So we add the 0 here. So we start with that 0, because eventually after multiplying by 2, remember we're multiplying by 20, you'll have to add the 0. So we add it at the end here. So already we have added it. Then now you start the multiplication by 2. So 2 here by 8. Remember we are multiplying the whole number up there by 2 now. So 2 multiplied by 8 is 16. So 6 is here. So we have 6 carry 1. So that one you write it on top of 6. And then now 6 multiplied by 2 is 12. So you write, the 12 here, we add the 1 that we had carried, becomes 13. So 3 carry 1 again. So that one you write it on top. The reason for writing it is that I don't forget. So we have again 5 multiplied by 2 is 10 plus the 1 becomes 11. So I write 1, I carry 1 again. I'm just writing it on top of 4 so that I don't forget. And then we have now 4 multiplied by 2 is 8 plus the 1, it becomes 9. So you write 9 here. And then now we have 3 multiplied by 2 is 6 plus the 1 that you had carried becomes 7. So after sorry, just a minute. So we have 2 multiplied by 8 here. It will give us 16. So we write 6 carry 1. And then 6 multiplied by 2 is 12 plus 1 becomes 13 carry 1 again. Then 5 by 2 is 10 plus 1 is 11. So 1 carry 1 again. Then we have 4 multiplied by 2 is 8. And plus the 1 we have carried becomes 9. So here we've not carried anything. So the 1 here is not necessary. So we now have 3 multiplied by 2 gives us 6. And then after that, you're supposed to add the two numbers. Remember I said you multiplied the number up here by 3. Then again, you multiplied it by 20. Then you add the two results. So you are adding the 2. So if you add the 2, we have 4 plus 0 is 4. 0 plus 6 is 6. 7 plus 3 is 10. So we write 0 carry 1. 1 carried over to the next digit. Then 3 plus 1 is 4 plus 1 is 5. Then 0 plus 9 is 9, and of course 1 plus 6 is 7. And the result is becoming 795,064 as the correct answer for that operation, multiplication. Remember we are talking about multiplication and division of whole numbers. So now we want to look at division of whole numbers. How do you divide numbers, and what are some of the facts that we need to have right before we start the process? So we have this right up here. When a number is divided by another, the result is called quotient. For example, if you write 4 divided by 2, the answer is 2. So this is what we are calling the quotient. It is the result of this division. So this number is divided by 2 and the result is 2. So this one here is what we're calling the quotient. Now, sometimes quotient and remainder is obtained. For example, if you have 5, we have 5 divided by 2. The result will be 2, remainder 1. What this means is that you had 5 items, or let's say 5 pens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you need to give them out to two people. So there is person A and person B. So this person will get 1, 2, and 1, 2. But then you'll be having another pen that cannot be given out, so it becomes the remainder. See, we had 5, we have given 2 to this person A, we have given 2 to person B, but total we had 5, so we have given 2 plus 2 is 4. There is a remainder here of 1 which you are finding out. Between these two people, whom do we give it to? So we call it a remainder that cannot be shared out. Because ideally dividing, we are assuming that each person is supposed to be receiving equal share. So we say sometimes the quotient and a remainder is obtained. So for example, if we divide 5 divided by 2, the quotient is 2 and the remainder is 1. So the quotient is taken to be the whole number part, as you can see, and the number being divided is called dividend. So we have got about four terms that are used here that are important with regards to division of numbers. We have the quotient, we have a remainder, and we have something here called the dividend, and then of course the divisor. These four terms are very important when it comes to division of numbers. What is quotient, what is remainder, and what is dividend, and what is divisor. So if you have 5 divided by 2, this is the divisor, this 2 here. This is the divisor. This 5 here is the dividend. So in this context, that is what dividend is. So dividend. So with regards to division, when we talk about dividend, we mean this number that is divided by another number. And the number you are dividing by is called divisor. And the result is 2. This one we call it the quotient. And then remember the remainder is 1 in this case. So we have the remainder here, and we have the quotient here, and we have the divisor, the number you are dividing by, and then we have the number that you are dividing called the dividend. So these facts are very important. We have got these terms used: 1, 2, 3. We have the dividend, the divisor, and of course we have the quotient, this one here. We have got the quotient. The quotient. So quotient, remainder, divisor, and dividend, very, very important. At least you need to master and get to know what they are. So we have our first example here on division. So you can see we have our dividend there, 6,493, and we have got our divisor there. We want to see whether this one is resulting in a quotient plus a remainder or a quotient only. Actually, I didn't note that when you have a number like 4 divided by 2 and the result is 2, here there is no remainder, so we can consider the remainder to be 0. In this case, where the remainder is 0, we normally consider the dividend here being a multiple of the divisor, or we say the divisor here is a factor. It's a factor of the dividend. It divides the other one exact number of times. When there is no remainder, we would consider the remainder to be 0. So we want to see whether we're going to have a remainder, and of course we have the dividend, and of course we want to see what is going to be the quotient. So the dividend is 6,493 and the divisor is 14, and then it is more convenient to use long division. In the previous case we just looked at 4 divided by 2 and we realized the answer is 2. This still can be used. It's a shorter way, it's a simpler way of doing it. But then sometimes when we have bigger numbers like 14 and then you want to use this method, it's not really convenient. So we say it is more convenient to use long division method. And you want to see how do you use long division method to solve problems involving division of numbers. So this is what we're calling the long division. You have this sign here. You can see this sign. And then we have the dividend is right inside that sign there. And then the divisor is outside. So what you're going to do is this. So you check whether the number that is outside the divisor can divide the first digit. You see, this first digit, supposedly it was greater compared to the divisor here. Then it would be possible to divide. But now we have 6. and then you need to divide it by 14. That is not possible. So you'll pick the first two digits in the dividend, which is 64. And then you see 14 goes into 64 how many times? You realize that 14 goes there 4 times. So you write it on top of the second digit of the 2. Remember, don't make a mistake and write it on top of 6. That will be a problem. So don't do that. So you write it on top of the second digit of the 2. If we only used one digit of the dividend, then I would have written it on top of 6. But now that I've used the 2 digits to give me the number 64, then I want to find 64. 14 divided 64 how many times? The answer I get, I will be writing it on top of 4. So 14 goes into 64 4 times. And if you multiply 4, that's what you're supposed to do. 4 multiplied by 14 is 56. And then you subtract the 2. So remember, you find out 14 here goes into 64 how many times? 4 times. Take note of where we are writing that 4. Where do you write that 4? On top of this 4 here. On top of the second digit. The second digit of the 2. Remember, I used the 2. If I used the first 3 digits, I would have written the first digit on top of 9. But here I've used 2 digits of the dividend. So I write it on top of 4. Then after that, you multiply 4 by 14 here. You realize the answer is 54. Again, you write it on, right below the digits. If there are 2, write it the way I've written it. This one on top of this, and this one below this, and this other one below this. If it was 1, I would have just written it below this only. So if you subtract, remember here we've done subtraction of numbers in our previous videos. Possibly you can look out and check, see how it is done. So 4 here is not possible for you to subtract. You'll end up with a negative. So to avoid that, you have to borrow 1 from 6. Remember previously, in our previous videos, we said as you carry that 1 to the next digit, it goes as 10. So this is now remaining here as 5. So this is becoming 14. So 14 minus 6 is 8. See? And then, of course, this is 9. Or you drop this one down here. You drop 9 down here. So we get 89. Then you ask yourself, 14 goes into 89 how many times? It is 6 times. Then the procedure is still maintained. You multiply 6 by 14 to give you 84. Then you still subtract. So you can see here the result is 1, 5. So that 5 you write it on top of the second digit of the 2, which is 9. And then you drop the 3 here. So you keep dropping as you continue. So that will give us 53. And 14 goes into 53 how many times? 3. 3 by 14 is 42. And if you subtract, we have 1, 1. The moment you get a number that is less than the divisor, you stop. Then you know now you have a remainder. So that is normally what we consider as the remainder. So the process is supposed to continue until when you get a number that is less than the divisor here. This one is 14, this is 11. So 11 is less. So that 11 will be considered to be the remainder. So we say the quotient is 463, remainder is 11. So we say 14 goes into 6,493, 463 times, and the remainder is 11. So this is the quotient, and 11 is the remainder. Now take note, this one here, you see, if you take the quotient, you multiply by the divisor, the result will be less than the quotient by 11. So you can talk of, this is a rule, quotient is equals to, the dividend is equals to quotient multiplied by the divisor, you add 11. This one will always apply. Every time you do your division, make sure this one is maintained. You take this one here, you multiply by this, you'll get a result that is less than the dividend by what is remaining there all the time. You take this, you multiply by this, you'll get a result that is less than the dividend by the remainder. So that gives us a rule here that dividend is equals to quotient multiplied by divisor, you add 11. So you can see the general formula is there. This relationship, the relationship here, this relationship is going to help you with just verifying that what you have done is right. Every time you're doing solving problems involving division, the problem is just going to help you with checking whether what you have done is right or wrong. So if you realize this is not the case, then you know possibly you've made a mistake somewhere, and you can always check through your work and make sure that everything that you have done is okay. So we have a second example here. I want to see, we have 34,567 divided by 25. I want to see how you can do it. So we have long division method applied. So we have our symbol there. The divisor is normally written outside the sign, and then the dividend is normally written, we write the dividend inside. So 34,567. So we have 25 going into 3, not possible because 3 is smaller. So you'll pick the first two digits. The first two digits. So 25 goes into 34 once. You see, take note of where I'm writing the 1. So it goes there once. And 1 times 25 is 25. Then remember we said what you do next is to subtract. So again, I have to borrow 1 from 3. Taking it there, it becomes 14. 14 minus 5 is 9. And here we had 2 remaining. 2 minus 2 is 0. Then you drop 5. This is the next digit, so that's what you drop. So 25 goes into 95. How many times? So we have to check 25 is into 95. How many times? So 25 goes into 95 3 times, and 3 by 25. Remember, after you've gotten the result, you multiply the 2. So 3 by 25 is 75. And if you subtract, that is 0. And then this is going to be 2. So we have 20 here. Then now we have 6 dropped down here. So 6. So again, you ask yourself, 25 goes into 106 how many times? So we have 206 divided by 25. The result is 8, and 8 times 25. So this 8 here you multiply by 25 is 200. So if you subtract the 2, we have 6. And then now you drop again 7, you drop it down here. And you ask yourself again, 25 goes into 67 how many times? You realize that it is 2 times. And 2 by 25 is 50. And if you subtract the 2, remember this is 7, subtract 0 is 7. And of course, 6 minus 5 is 1. So you see now 17 here is less than 25. So that is the time that you stop and realize that now, after you have done your subtraction, the number remaining is now less than the divisor. Then you stop there. Yes. So it means the dividend here, 34,567 divided by 25. The answer is 1382, remainder 17. So this is the quotient, this is the remainder. So that marks the end of our discussion on multiplication and division of natural numbers. We have a few questions here to help you. So we have a few questions here to help you with the practice and just to check whether what you are following through, at least you're able to get what you are following through. So attempt the question, do post them on the comment section, the responses, and then you'll look at them, and then we will be able to respond accordingly. Our next video will be on mixed operations involving natural numbers. Goodbye.